so good, man. Well, thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I'm super excited. Got my girl, Briana Martinez. Somebody I've always loved talking basketball with in the gym. Spent a lot of time chatting with her over the course of her college career, her high school coaching career, her college coaching career. So just really excited to catch up with you, see what lots been going on with you in the last couple of years. I know your story is, I love talking to former players who have kind of, taken the road less traveled. It wasn't, a lot of times kids think this journey through high school to college is an easy journey. And you pick your school and it's the school you end up with and everything's hunky dory. So a lot of times those of you that have had to deal with some adversity, I think those are the best stories that we could tell, for a lot of the young ladies who are, getting ready to make that journey into college. So with that being said, I like to start the same way. So kind of take me back to the beginnings for you when you first started playing the game, when you first fell in love with the game.
All right. First of all, thank you for having me. I'm so grateful to have been asked to, hop on the podcast. So I'm excited to share my journey. I love talking basketball and just what I've been through, because I know I'm not the only one. And, there's a lot of people that think they're alone out there going through, the hardships, and it's you're not alone. A lot of people have the same. Come to find out, I had a kid that I coached at University of Redlands where she had the same exact story as I did, tore her ACL twice in college. It ended her career. She had to go a different route, but it ended up being a blessing for her anyways in her career. So, but to answer your question, I started playing at 4 years old. My dad put my brother and I into basketball and baseball at the same time at 4 years old. He coached us both, and I'm just the one who stuck with it. And I waited for my dad on the porch every day when he got home with a basketball in hand, ready to, get some shots up or practice. And I'm 5'10" now, and I was 5'10" in sixth grade. So I was skyrocketing over the boys. So my dad thought I was going to be a post. He thought I was going to be like 6'2", just like him. So we were practicing post moves and all that stuff. And then I just remember just basketball being the one thing that I just clung onto, and just everything surrounded basketball for me. And I didn't start falling in love with the game until, quite honestly, I played for Coach Marlin in high school, sophomore year. I played EBO. I had fun. I knew I was, getting pretty good in middle school, and then I played EBO since I was in sixth grade. But playing for Coach Marlin as a sophomore through my senior year, I think I didn't know college basketball was an option for me until I really played for him, and he showed how much he believed in me, and I think I mentioned to you, he had the Chardays and the Paris Johnsons and the Inga Orakovas and the Giselle Studevants, who I got to play around some great kids, and I wasn't one of those kids, but Coach Marlin treated me like one of those kids still. And he still fought for me and battled for me to go play college ball, even though I didn't get as much notoriety as the rest of them. And that's what made me fall in love with it, because I had someone who believed in me to go to the next level. So it was just fun, and the level of competition just grew for me. So yeah.
when you were playing club early, you say you didn't love it, but I mean, that's a commitment. So I'm guessing, it was still a level of passion for you. You enjoyed it. How do you distinguish between, what makes you think you didn't love it then? And what was the difference between how you approached it when you were in high school versus the younger days in club? Yeah.
Good question. So when I was younger, I just was playing it because that's something that I just knew I was good at. My dad, it's kind of became a routine in my life. My dad would pick us up we would go to basketball practice, baseball practice, come home, do homework, boom. The next day is the same thing. So it was kind of like a routine, like I was just kind of going through it as a kid. I didn't really see the importance in what basketball could do for me until I got to high school with a coach that was as knowledgeable and connected as Coach Marlin. So in sixth grade, seventh, eighth grade, yeah, it was fun. I got to compete in seventh, eighth grade. I played for Irvin Jerry, which was my college coach, San Diego Christian, and we played in championships for middle school and stuff like that. And it was fun, but I didn't see the magnitude of what basketball could do for my future until I got to high school. When I was in high school, I remember my dad had a herniated disc in his back. And in order for me to get a jump shot, which is what Coach Marlin told me I needed in order to go to college, because I was a one-dimensional player, I needed to get a jump shot. I couldn't just rebound. I was 5'10". If I wanted to go D1, which is what my goal was, I was too small. I needed to be a shooting guard. So my dad had a herniated disc, and he stood under the basket and didn't move. He told me in order for him to rebound for me, I had to make it, or else I was chasing the basketball everywhere. So eventually I just started, getting a routine and just nailing my shot down. And those little things right there just made me realize it's much bigger than basketball, and basketball is just a small, it's a small tool to a bigger picture, like a small piece to a bigger puzzle, if that makes sense.
Perfect sense. So I think it's interesting that you say, you almost talk about the early days of just having fun as a negative. And I think that's part of the problem nowadays. I think a lot of kids that are playing 6th, 7th, 8th are already thinking scholarships. And I don't think at that younger age, they're having fun, which is what it's really supposed to be. Because the number one thing I hate to see is kids get burnt out when they get in high school, and you see it all the time. And so do you think I'm guessing it had a lot to do with your dad, that there was no push for, every weekend we're talking about, how you cost your chance at a scholarship, and you'd be surprised. Those are some of the conversations, parents are having with young kids. So do you think it was the impact of your dad, and kind of he kept it fun for you?
Yeah. Well, first off, I didn't have social media or a phone, to be honest, until I got into 8th grade. So, and I had a Nextel phone. There was no Instagram on Nextel. So I didn't have the social media pressures that the kids in 5th and 6th grade do now to post a highlight reel to be on Ball is Life. I didn't have those things. It was you grind in the gym by yourself and it shows on the court or not. And so my dad, he was very, very hard on me. But he also knew, and I didn't realize this until I got older, until I got to high school, that my dad was very, very good at knowing when too much is too much. He knew the balance of letting me be a kid, but also pushing me because he saw potential in me. So I think that he did a really good job in that. It wasn't until high school and when him and Coach Marlin got connected that he really started to really push me, because he knew I could take it. He saw, him and Coach Marlin are really close. So they both talked about my potential and where I could go. Coach Marlin had those in-depth conversations with us both, but he did a really good job at having that balance of knowing where to push me, but still knowing when to back off and let me still be a kid.
You also mentioned that you were playing baseball. How long did you play that? And, we talk all the time how I think that's one of the things. I think kids get specialized in their sport way too young nowadays. When we were younger, we played whatever sport was in season. How do you think the fact that there was also that balance with another sport played into your you talked about the balance. So you weren't always playing basketball. There was other sports. Do you think that played a role in kind of how you and your father had that relationship of keeping it balanced?
Absolutely. I actually was better at softball. Everyone told me I should have went D1 softball. I was a catcher, big time hitter, number 4 hitter. I actually apparently led the league in home runs and stuff like that at Bishop. So, I played softball for fun just to get away. I played baseball up until 6th grade, and then I started with club softball. So in 6th grade is when I started club softball and started playing with the girls. And, it was fun. It was fun for me. It was easy. It was one of the easier sports. I had to work to get better at basketball, but softball was just an easy knack for me. I don't know if I got it from my dad because that was his sport, was baseball. But, was just fun to have a different, like a, you know, like kind of a, it was kind of like a breath of fresh air from basketball, but I still played club softball. Until I got into high school. When I got into high school, I realized I really wanted to focus on basketball, but I still played softball when the season came around. So yeah, I mean, it was just it was whatever we gravitated to. My brother didn't stick with basketball and baseball. He ended up playing water polo and volleyball and was phenomenal at it. So my dad supported us in whatever we wanted to do, and it was our choice, and my dad was just gonna help make us better in whatever way he could. But he still, you know, like my brother couldn't be pushed like I was, you know, he wasn't, we're not the same. But I liked my dad pushing me. I liked my dad getting the best out of me, even though sometimes it would make me cry or it would make me mad, but I still liked it. My brother didn't. So all that stuff, it all played a role. But yeah, having that balance helped with softball too, because I was able to do things that, you know, in movements, and being a personal trainer, you learn these things. So I was a certified personal trainer. You learn that sports have different movements and use different muscles. So I was you know, being a 2-sport athlete helps, especially going into college. So
they say a lot of the overuse injuries that you see in kids nowadays comes from the fact that they're so specialized. So you're only using the same muscles, you know, over and over again. I know for me, I have kids right now playing volleyball. I actually had to tell the kid the other day to stop stressing because she was like, you know, I'm missing workout tonight because, you know, volleyball practice. I said, hey, like this is volleyball season. Everything we're doing now is, you know, off season work. It's that's your in season. But I know that there are pressure from, you know, other coaches. Sometimes parents put that pressure that they can't do other things. And for me, I feel like it makes you better at your primary sport if you are well-rounded in other areas as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So you get to high school. So you were not at Bishop's for all 4 years. Where did you start?
I went to Hilltop my freshman year. So I was at Hilltop Elementary, middle, and then my freshman year.
And then, so was it that you always want to go to Bishop's, or kind of what happened for you to end up there?
Oh, I didn't want to go to Bishop's, but I thank God every day my dad forced me to go. And I say forced loosely, but you know, Coach Marlin, my sophomore year was Coach Marlin's second year at Bishop. So my freshman year was his first year there. And, you know, him going to Bishop's just made it a lot easier for me to go play for him, because I lived down in Chula Vista. You know, he was at San Diego High. You know, you can't recruit to go to public schools, you know. And so I just knew, my dad knew that Bishop's, being the educational institution that it was, and seeing the level of play at Hilltop, and, you know, the how do I say this nicely, like the coaching at Hilltop wasn't up to par to help me get to where I needed to go. Did
you know that at the time as a freshman?
No. I thought I wanted to hang out with friends. I wanted to be with my friends that I had in middle school. I was the freshman on, I was the only freshman on the varsity team at Hilltop, and I was a freshman on the softball team at Hilltop. I thought I had the life. I thought I was, you know, going to be a 4-year letter, this big time, you know, freshman hanging out with the seniors. I only thought about the stuff that didn't even matter. But luckily my dad was, you know, seeing the bigger picture for me, as he should, and, you know, had me go to Bishop's, and it was the best decision ever. You know, I had a great time at Bishop's. I loved Bishop's. So I'm
guessing you mentioned the level of play, you know, probably competition both on your team and teams you're playing. How was that transition from Hilltop to Bishop? So I'm guessing it wasn't as hard as it wouldn't have been had you not had a club relationship with Marlin. But at the same time, I know it had to be a big change going to Bishop's as far as basketball.
Absolutely. Because on EBO, I didn't always play for Marlin too. I played for my cousin Rob too. And then I also, I think it was just Robbie, but sometimes probably Coach Marlin. But anyways, regardless, it was definitely different. And, you know, at Hilltop, it was very lackadaisical. I'm gonna be straight honest. It was very lackadaisical. Kids came to play just because they just came to play. But at Bishop's, playing for Coach Marlin, you know, playing for Coach Marlin, playing for Robbie, playing for you, playing for, you know, Chris Croce, you know, you're going to play for a scholarship. You're going to play to go to the next level. You're going to take it serious, and you're going to be invested. And that's the difference for me going from Hilltop to Bishop's was, okay, this is real. Like, this is my ticket to get a scholarship pay for my degrees. And because for my dad, and my parents, I should say, is the rule with my parents was you either go to college through sports, or you go to the military, or you get a job, because we can't afford college, so we had to work to make sure that, my ticket was college through sports, through basketball.
So on the court, what were some of the differences? Pace, intensity in practice. What were some of the biggest things that were different from playing at Hilltop to, going to play with Marlin?
Yep, pace, intensity, and the level of the basketball IQ, I should say. The plays that we were running at Hilltop were not anything compared to what Coach Marlin had for us. We played Hilltop my sophomore year. We went back. Coach Marlin decided to put Hilltop on the schedule my sophomore year, and we played Hilltop, and we smacked them. But it was the level of IQ was just elevated, and it helped me get better, helped me get a lot smarter. At Hilltop, I felt like I was just, bare minimum, just playing with everybody, being the cool freshman. But at Bishop's, we were competing for a spot every day. It was just different. It was elevated on another level. So
is Inga older than you?
She is.
So she was there when you got there. Talk to me about some of the players that were there at the time when you first got there.
Yeah, so Inga was there. She actually lived with me. So we housed Inga. And then Giselle Studevant, she transferred from Country Day. And then Alyssa Campanero, Bianca Padilla. My sophomore year, Michelle Brunker was there. She was a senior. We had Elena White. And then we had Jessica Palmer. So and then we had Rebecca Chen. she was, Bishop's. Becca was she knew it. She was one of those kids who was a body, but she had the energy that she was that energy kid, like a Jared Dudley, but she knew her role. And so, but Jessica Palmer, she came in as one of those kids. If we needed a hard screen on somebody, that was Jessica. Jessica came in and did that. Giselle and Inga were our leading scorers. They were our big time players. We looked to them to get a bucket. Alyssa and Bianca. Alyssa was a smooth point guard. I love playing with Alyssa. Bianca was good too. She was nice with it. And then Michelle, I only got to play with her senior year, but she was an amazing teammate. I loved playing with her. She was a bucket as well. And then Elena White, she was just a lights out shooter. I was a role player. So I got the boards, cleaned up the trash, got on the floor. Coach KO at UNLV, when she was there, she used to call me knee pad girl, because I was always on the floor wearing knee pads, diving for loose balls. So we all had a role. That was the one thing too at Bishop's. The difference is everybody had a role and they knew it and they bought in. So at Hilltop, it wasn't like that.
And then, what look at the resume, there was some success. So what kind of memories do you have of those 3 years in terms of memorable wins, memorable losses over the course of those 3 years?
Mm-hmm. First memorable win obviously is our CIF championship game my junior year. We beat Mater Dei in CIF, but within that same year we had a heartbreaking loss in the state semifinal run against Mater Dei. It was neck and neck down with we were up, I think by one. We were up by one with 12 seconds left, and teammate of mine threw the ball, turnover under their basket. Jasmine Lynch grabs it, lays it right up. Boom, time goes out. We lose by one. They go and win the state championship. So needless to say, that could have been ours. And it's just one of those things that Coach Marlin and I talk about all the time, and it breaks our hearts every day. But lots of great competition that we got to play. We went to Vegas, played against Bishop Gorman, Colorado. We played in some big time games. Country Day, obviously great competition. They beat us my sophomore year in CIF and in my senior year. So
what was that rivalry like, back then?
I think my sophomore year was the worst. Because sophomore and senior year, mainly sophomore year, because it was Giselle's first year from Country Day. So going to play at Country Day, I remember they had all kinds of and against Country Day at their place. It was Inga's first game after being under
investigation.
Under investigation.
Yeah.
And so we had our 2 big time players, you know, Inga was available. They had a bunch of signs in German that said, I don't know what, only Inga knew. And she said it didn't even make sense. There were signs that were, there were signs that, you know, we're talking about Giselle. The whole gym was packed. I mean, you couldn't even hear Coach Marlin. Coach Marlin would tell us in the huddle, like, hey, you will not be able to hear me yell. So you need to look at me or you need to talk amongst each other. You guys have to be on the same page in order to win this game because it is way too loud in this gym. Like Country Day did not like us. And we did not like them either. You know, that rivalry was huge. And even when they came to Bishops, it was standing room only. You know, those games, it was like, it was a great experience. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it, you know, but yeah, that first game against Country Day, my sophomore year, my eyes were this big. I was like, oh my gosh, is this really what's happening?
Do you remember, like, obviously you remember, but who were some of the players for the Country Day on that year, or those couple years?
Dominique Connors, who went to play at USD, Ariana Elagato, an amazing point guard. Gosh, those 2 I remember. I'm not really good with names, but I remember those 2 for sure. They had a post. I want to say Janae Fulcher, I believe, but I can't remember. I could be wrong, but they had some good players for Country Day. I mean, Terry Bamford has a great program there for sure.
So when does at what point, you know, in high school, I mean, you talked about high school is when it got serious, but when did you really start thinking college was an option and you start looking at potential schools and, you know, recruitment starts? When does that start to happen for you?
I want to say sophomore year. I believe sophomore year, summer after my sophomore year was when I got my first letter of interest. And it was from University of Washington. Then after that, it was San Diego State. And then they started coming in little by little. And that's when I was like, oh my gosh, I have an opportunity. And it just was like, all right, so what do I do next? You know, you just got to go up from here. They see your potential. You know, don't plateau. And that's what my dad told me is like, you got to work every single day, Coach Marlon. You got to work every single day. These don't mean anything. They're just interest letters. They send them to a lot of kids if, you know, so you didn't get an offer. So don't settle on this. My dad would always tell me, don't ever think you've arrived. And so it was my summer of my sophomore year, you know, after those first couple letters from Washington and San Diego State is when I was like, oh, wow, this is real. Like, this is big.
And at this point, where are you thinking, like, what kind of aspirations do you have? What kind of schools are piquing your interest, or, like, you know, the dream schools that you may have?
I always dreamed, it's weird, but I dreamed of playing at UCLA or USC, either one. My dad was a huge Trojans fan. We had a couple, you know, family friends that played football for USC. My dad was a huge Trojans fan, but I loved the UCLA program. I wanted to play at UCLA. I thought, you know, I really, really liked them. I liked San Diego State as well. That was when Beth Burns was there, and I really, you know, really liked her program and what she did there. Of course, I wanted to stay close to home too, but I really liked.
I remember you telling me a story where you guys got to scrimmage against San Diego State when Paris was there, right?
Paris was there. Jerica Williams from Mount Miguel was there. It was my sophomore year, I believe, and Coach Marlin had us.
How'd that go? Tell me about that.
I was my tail was between my legs. I was so scared. I remember specifically Jerica stole the ball from me and the play stopped. She handed it back to me and she said, don't do that. Don't let me do that again. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, these are college players. Like, I was so scared and I was intimidated, but it was probably the coolest thing that we ever did because I mean, Coach Marlin always set us up to play against the best, and it prepared us. So when we did play against the best, we already knew what it felt like. So, yeah, it was fun. It was definitely intimidating, but it was fun.
So tell me about the recruiting process that ends up, you know, senior year. How do you end up making the decision to land at GCU? So
GCU came after Cal State Fullerton.
Okay.
I actually got recruited to Cal State Fullerton out of high school, which was like a, you know, an opportunity that wasn't there my entire recruiting, you know, my entire
time. They came in late?
came in late. I actually had one last tournament going into my senior year, and Fullerton noticed me, and I signed right as soon as my visit happened. I signed. I was scared, and ended up not being a good fit. Didn't really fill it out like I should have, and transferred to GCU. Best experience. I loved my 2 years at GCU. Loved playing for Coach May, Coach Cole, Coach Miley. They're the coaches I really, really liked closest to Coach Marlin. And my first year at GCU, so it was my redshirt freshman year, I tore my ACL right before conference play. It was actually in shoot around before we went to go play Dixie State, and tore my ACL shooting a jump shot, and then tried to come back my second year. I didn't have the confidence, that I did going into my sophomore year. And, now being a coach and a recruiting coordinator, I see, the process of letting a player go because they're not fulfilling their end of the bargain. At that time, I didn't notice it, and I just was like upset at the coaches. But now being a coach and understanding if a player's not upholding their end of the bargain and you've given them enough chances, something's got to give. So
let me stay right there. So that's so profound. So you're saying that your experience as a coach helps you understand kind of where you were coming up short.
Mm-hmm,
can you expound on that? Like, was it the commitment level wasn't there? You weren't working as hard as maybe you thought you were working at the time?
No, I actually was working very, very hard. I was one of the ones in the gym on the shooting gun a lot, getting my workouts in. I was very, very focused. But when it came time for being on the court and in the in 5-on-5 or, anytime we were competing, I wasn't competing to the level that I needed to compete at in order to play. And I gave my coaches gave me every chance, they even put me in games, and I just wasn't doing what I was brought there to do. And I lost that confidence after I tore my ACL. And it's tough. It's a mental thing that you have to get through. And I think that, they were very fair in my process of return and, healing and everything. I had the best athletic trainers at GCU to take care of me. So there was, I got stronger. My ACL was fine. Everything was fine. It was just me holding myself back. And I didn't see that until I became a coach. And I had players that we had invested in with scholarships and paying for and they're not putting in their end of the bargain. They're not working hard. They're not, being a good teammate, and they're just not doing all of these things. And, we're investing into you, and the return of investment is not where it should be, as a player. And so I didn't see that until I became a coach, and I'm like, wow, if I could sit down with Coach May and tell him, Coach May, I understand why you had to do that. And I know it was hard, but I understand why you had to let me go, because I wasn't holding my end of the bargain. And you invested a full ride scholarship into me, which should have gone to another kid that would have given you what you needed.
So that was after your redshirt sophomore year?
Mm-hmm.
So tell me kind of how that conversation went for them to kind of, make the decision to let you go. Kind of how'd that conversation go, and then, how you processed that at the time?
Well, it was kind of something that was being led up to. I was always on the scout team, after my second year, towards the end, I was always on the scout team. And you don't want to be on the scout team unless you're a red shirt or unless you're not playing at all. So you want to be on the starting five, or at least the 6th or 7th, 8th person, being subbed in, but in scrimmages for practice. But I was always on the scout team playing against our starting five. And so by the end of the season, Coach May brought me into his office, and I see Coach Cole and Coach Miley sitting there. And, you never want to get pulled into the head coach's office with them looking like somebody kicked their puppy, and they just did not look happy. And I was nervous.
Had you kind of felt it? Did you see it coming? And you mentioned you were on the scout team. Was it something that you kind of felt in the back of your mind that this could be a conversation that was about to happen?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But once he had said, Coach, it took Coach May a while. I could tell it hurt him. I could tell it wasn't easy for him. It wasn't like, all right, you're out of here. It was kind of like, Bree, you know what? Like, we've had to, really do some, because GCU, this was at the time too. This was my last season there was their last season as a Division II school. So they were going D1. So the level of competition was amping up. And so I came into the office. He said, Bree, this is not easy. We really like you, but from a basketball standpoint, we have to let you go. We'll help you get to your next home if you want to continue to play basketball. It's just been, very unfortunate. And Coach Marley and Coach Cole didn't really say anything. I can tell it hurt them too. And, at the end of the day, it's business. College basketball is a business, and they're getting paid to coach and win games. And I wasn't helping them do that. So at the end of the day, it is what it is. And I didn't see that until later on. But at that time, it hurt. I was sad for sure.
So how do you pick yourself up? What's the next move? Who's the first call? Walk me through the process of making the next move.
I called my dad. Next. Told my dad, getting let go. They're not bringing me back. I was really upset. My dad was upset. My dad actually emailed Coach May, told him, on the recruiting visit, because they told me on my recruiting visit I was going to graduate from GCU, and that was one of the things that I took with me as a recruiting coordinator. I'm never going to tell a kid I'm not going to guarantee them graduating with me, because that's a false promise. And, so my dad was upset with that because we really invested in GCU. And so called Coach Marlin. Oh, actually, before that, I told my dad, you know what, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I should be done, maybe. And then my dad reminded me, remember our deal? You either go to college for basketball and get a full ride because we can't afford college, or you go to the military or you get a job. And military was out of the question. I could not handle the military. And getting a job, I wasn't ready for that yet either. I still, so I came back home. Coach Irvin Jerry heard that I was transferring. So he told me about Coach Dillon at San Diego Christian College. Told me to go try out. My tryout at San Diego Christian was awful. I was upset. It's a Christian institution. I'm cursing up a storm. I'm turning the ball over, missing everything. I'm looking like I'm bad. And
what's your health level at that time?
My health level?
Yeah, as far as your knee and where are you with your knee at that? Are you like feeling 100%?
Mm-hmm. My knee felt fine. I felt good to go. I've never worn a brace, like a DonJoy brace. I wore maybe like one of those slide-on ones every once in a while, but I never wore a brace. I was fine. I still, so she ended up offering me a scholarship, surprisingly. And then next thing you know, Coach Jerry ended up getting hired on in her position. So the man who sent me there to get tried out or to have that tryout ended up being my coach. So it worked out in the end. But
what was he doing before that? Was he an assistant?
He was at Sweetwater High School, and
okay.
He was the men's JV coach, I believe.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that worked out where he sent you there and then he followed you. So how, I think that's when I first met you. Mm-hmm. I remember I met you, it was EBO practice and you came and you were working out. And I think that was right before you started at San Diego Christian. So how's that process going? Walk me through San Diego Christian. Obviously it's an adjustment. It's a different level. So what were some of the biggest differences in those two programs and kind of how were you as a player different at San Diego Christian versus GCU?
I was a totally different player. It was night and day. And my dad would tell you the same thing, that I don't know where the chip on my shoulder came from. I don't know where the confidence came from. But at San Diego Christian, I felt like I had something to prove. And I just went out and played. I just played. I didn't play for anyone. I didn't play for recognition. I just played. Coach Jerry I didn't have a starting spot at San Diego Christian when I first got there. There was a returner that was bound to set the 3-point record at San Diego Christian. And I just worked my tail off, and she was a starter and she was in my position. I just worked my tail off in the gym. I was in the gym all the time, on the shooting gun. I was working out with the men's players as well, just getting practice in with somebody, because, some of my teammates just didn't live close or didn't want to go work out. So I was asking anybody to help me. So I worked and earned a starting spot. Coach Jerry just didn't give it to me because I was a D2 player. I came from GCU or CSU Fullerton. So that was one thing that was really cool, is I earned my spot there. He didn't treat me special or anything like that. But once I got it, it was like there was nobody stopping me. The competition level at San Diego Christian, it wasn't nearly at GCU. It was, but the teams that we played, like Vanguard, Masters, Westmont, those teams, Vanguard's going and scrimmaging against Stanford and UConn in their preseason. So we're playing against good competition. But as far as San Diego Christian, it was Coach Jerry's first year as a head coach. He was getting his feet wet as far as being a collegiate head coach. And I think it was a lot less than what I was competing with at GCU. The level of commitment was different than it was at GCU, but nonetheless, it was still pretty competitive. At least the GSAC was.
And you played there for 2 years?
Mm-hmm. Played there for 2 years, but my senior year tore my ACL again, so I only played about 9 games in. And
then, so when you get hurt your senior year, what's your mindset? How are you feeling? Is it a situation where you're questioning it again, or kind of where's your mindset through that at that? I mean, again, like you have to be feeling like another one. Like, what's the mindset for you then?
Well, funny thing is, I don't know if it's funny now looking back at it, but not at that time, but I tried playing on my torn ACL. When I tore it in a game. And Same one, trying to do a Euro step, and I should have had no business doing a Euro step, and should have just taken the contact and went up. But I tore it, but it didn't feel like the first one. The first one, I couldn't walk. I couldn't, I had to get carried to the athletic training room. But this one, I walked to the bench. It was swollen the next day. It was a small tournament we had that weekend, so it was swollen the next day. So I had our athletic trainer just wrap my knee, and then I wore my brace over it, and so my knee was super secure. But started that game the day after I tore it, and I didn't know it was torn at this time, so I just thought I tweaked my knee, but. So when I went into the game the next day, I just couldn't move. I couldn't cut. I wasn't fast and agile like normal. So saw the team doctor within that week, and she told me that it was torn, and I yelled at her, "No, it's not." And then I ran out the athletic training room because it was my senior year. I'm leading in points. I'm leading in rebounds. I'm leading my team, and I just wasn't ready to give it up. I wasn't ready to stop. I was like, I finally was playing the way I'd wished I'd played like my entire career. And I wasn't ready to stop. So when she told me it was torn, I asked my athletic trainer, the next couple of days after I calmed down, what are the chances of me playing on a torn ACL? And she told me it's very slim. We got to order you a Donjoy brace. So she ordered me one specialized or specially fit for my knee. And once I got it, went into practice. I thought I was fine cutting, playing, but I was playing at my pace. So our next game when we played at Westmont, I was playing at their pace, or they were playing at their pace, and I was trying to keep up, and it was ugly. I go back to the film all the time and try to watch it, and it's not pretty. And Coach Jerry subbed me out after the first quarter, and I remember slamming the door open to walk outside from the gym, and I screamed. Because I knew at that point my career was over. And I loved basketball so much that in the roller coaster of events that I went through, I feel like it just kind of all collapsed on me at that moment. And I just screamed it out, and I just knew I was done. So I walked back into the gym once I calmed down, and Coach Jerry looked at me and he's like, "You ready to go back in?" And I think he just said that just to be kind, but he knew by the look, my face was probably red. He knew I was done. And I just, asked for ice on my knee, and then that was it. But I think after that, after that moment, I was a lot better. I was in a lot better headspace than I was my first ACL tear. My first ACL tear, I just was completely not confident. I think this one, I just was at peace with it. I kind of knew that regardless, I was going to be fine. I was getting my degree that year, fully paid for, did what I set out to accomplish. Coach Jerry was great by still letting me be a part of the team every single day in practice, in games, asking for my input and stuff. So it was cool. It was fine.
Do you think that's where you got the coaching bug?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think I just was not, once I graduated, I went to go get my personal training certification, but on the side of that, I was like, I like this, but I don't love it. I love playing basketball. So how would I stick to playing basketball? I actually asked Inga's legal guardian, that Daniel Prince. I called him and was like, what are the chances I could still play, overseas, like anything? He was like, Bree, it's slim to none. Nobody will pick you up. You tore your ACL twice. You're coming from a very small school. There's nothing on you, So I was like, all right, Coach Jerry, can I coach? He actually said no at the beginning. He actually said no. He had an assistant, Bobby Rattery, who went on to coach at Fresno State. And right now, I don't believe he's coaching anymore, but very successful assistant coach. He was at Montana before San Diego Christian, but it wasn't until later in the summer, Coach Jerry was like, all right, do you want to volunteer? And I said, for sure, I'll volunteer. So I volunteered to help him that first year. And then after that, it was just rolling. Ended up going to University of Redlands, became a head coach at Granite Hills, San Bernardino, everything after that. So it was pretty cool. I just ended up loving it.
So you went too fast. So how did you end up at Redlands? Because I remember, I think we were at Chaffey College. You were at Redlands, always looking at our kids, of course. So how did you end up at Redlands?
So Coach Jerry got an email from Coach Murphy, who's the head coach at University of Redlands, seeking out for a graduate assistant, anybody that's willing to apply. So he sent it to me, and I was like, wow, graduate assistant, I got one degree paid for. I can get another one paid for. So let me apply. Let me just even see. I took school serious in high school and college because, my parents were like, you're not going to slack off in school. They made sure I didn't slack off in anything. So, I had good grades. I graduated with a 3.5 GPA in my undergrad. But for me to go and get my master's, I never thought I would go and get my master's degree. I just thought I was going to, get my bachelor's, then figure it out from there. But I applied and interviewed with Coach Murphy, and he liked me. He liked me a lot. And I don't know what he liked about me, but it ended up being great 2 years at University of Redlands. And, he ended up wanting me to come back to coach with him. He admitted that he wanted me to come back, even though he was interviewing other coaches. But I really wanted to, expand my coaching resume. So ended up going different ways, but I loved my experience there.
So how did you end up at Granite Hills? That was next. How did that happen?
So upon expanding my resume, I went to go actually become a sports, trainer at a gym in Redlands. So when I was leaving the University of Redlands, I actually chose to go coach a variety of sports, a variety of athletes, football players, boxers, basketball players, soccer players at a gym in Redlands. It ended up not working out. So I moved back to San Diego and started working. I had worked at LA Fitness ever since I was in college. So I went back to work at LA Fitness again. And then my cousin Rob at Mount Miguel, he called me and said, hey, they need a head coach at Granite Hills. So I was like, am I fit to be a head coach? And I'm like, it's Granite Hills. Let's just try it. So ended up applying for that job. And they were like, sure, you're in, you're the head coach. And it was fun. We weren't good, but I had a great experience, great time, learned that I am capable of coaching, as a head coach, but I have a lot to learn. I was humbled real quick. playing Foothills Christian and Bishops and Mount Miguel and all those schools, I was like, wow, I have a lot of growing to do, but this is fun. Like I got a taste of it and I want more. So
what were some of the biggest challenges other than obviously, it's the first year and maybe not as talented as you'd like to be, but what were some of the lessons you learned in that first year actually being a head coach, regardless of the level, still that first chair?
You're responsible for everything. You're responsible for everything that happens within your program, whether it's grades, whether it's character, their character off the court, whether they're, doing the right things or not. You have to have hard conversations. I was the assistant coach everywhere up to that point. So I didn't have to have all the hard conversations. The assistant coach is the good cop. So now I'm the head coach, so I'm the bad cop, and I have to have the hard conversations and sometimes let kids go, because I had to let, I think, 2 kids go that I really wanted to keep because their character was detrimental to the team, and so those were hard things. And then, just like college, I was able to recruit. I can't recruit in high school, so I couldn't choose my players. I had to learn to work with what I got, and I had to learn to adjust to those that I had on my team. So I couldn't talk to a certain kid. I had a kid, a young lady on the team, I should say, that had all the potential in the world to be good, but nobody told her before that. And she was a junior, and I wish I had her as a freshman, but nobody told her she could be good. She just played basketball because she just happened to, like it. And she had about 4 cousins on the team. And, but her mind was so hardened. Like she just could not believe me telling her, Achella, you're able to do that move, and it was just being able to reach the kids or meet the kids where they're at and work with them from there instead of saying, okay, this is what we're doing and expecting them to meet me. Like I got to go meet them where they're at and build from there, because, these kids they don't think, like, they don't have the IQ like I do. I can't expect them to know everything that I say or do. Like I got to break it down to a T for them. So that was different because, I'm used to coaching college level kids. They're prepared for those things, so I had to go back to square one and remember where I started from. And I was once that kid that didn't understand, how to dribble or how to make a jump shot and not travel and things like that. So back to the basics it was, for sure.
So I know while you were there, you and I were actually both finalists for the same job. Neither one of us got it. I know I look back on it and I'm happy. I'm where I was supposed to be. We've had conversations about it at the time that we both felt like it was it didn't happen to us for a reason. So you leave Granite, and then you what's the next move from there?
So leave Granite. Actually, so as you were mentioning, applied for Francis Parker, didn't get it. It's all right. Ended up going to Coach Marlin. I was coaching EBO. I was coaching EBO that summer with Coach Marlin and Coach Croce, and just was being a sponge to them. That's what the purpose of what I wanted to do with EBO was, kind of be a sponge on the top team, learn from 2 great head coaches. And I got to do that. And then in the midst of that, Coach Marlin told me that Cal State San Bernardino was looking for an assistant. They had just hired the new head coach. And so he put in a good word. I applied for the position, interviewed, ended up being blessed with the assistant coach and recruiting coordinator position for Cal State San Bernardino.
So I need to go back. I need to know, I know the answer, but I want to talk about being on the bench with those 2, because it is like an experience like no other. There's probably at least 3 or 4 times where one of them will say something and you're like, I can't believe that they just said that. And actually, Marlon's probably worse than Chris in that dynamic, because I know there's been times where like Chris will be really intense and then Marlon will say just something just completely ludicrous and it just knocks Chris off the game. So I know you have some experience with the unique dynamics of sharing a bench with those 2.
Oh my gosh. So Coach Marlin loves his memes.
Yeah.
He loves his memes, and he'll reference his memes in a timeout. Like, it's the most intense moment. Coach Chris or Coach Croce is, just yelling, we need to do this. And there's like, I don't know how much time left. It's like crunch time in the game. Like, it's crucial moments. And Chris is just on the board and, we need to do this, we need to do this. And then Coach Marlon will come in with a reference from a meme, and then it's just everything's chill now. Everybody's laughing. They go out. But that's the cool part about it is, yeah, we're here to win. We want to compete and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, Coach Martin always says it's got to be fun. You got to have fun. And that was the cool part about it is, I learned how to have that balance and know, like, okay, they respond well to you if you know that balance. It's not always beating them down to the ground because, win or lose, like at the end, like it's bigger than basketball. And it's the relationships. And that's, if you build a relationship with your players, they're going to play for you, and it's actually a much deeper meaning about, or when you say playing for a coach, when you build a relationship, because they actually care about you and they want to, they'll run through a wall for you. We used to run through walls for Coach Marlon all the time, no hesitation, but because he invested in us like that. And so it's those things that make it fun. And yeah, Coach Marlon loves his memes, man. He loves those things.
I remember Chris would spend the whole time out drawing something up, and Marlon wouldn't say nothing. And obviously they end up messing the play up. Not the play, it wasn't the play design, it was execution. And Marlon would say, "I told you, they're never going to get it right. They're never going to get it right." And Chris would, slam the marker down. So those are always times me and Chris talk about that all the time. So did you ever see yourself as a recruit coordinator? Was that something you'd ever kind of pictured yourself doing?
I mean, yes and no, I guess. I think I just looked at my position as I'm an assistant coach. And, I had a taste of recruiting at the University of Redlands, none at San Diego Christian, but so I didn't know the extent of how important the recruiting coordinator position was. So I looked at it as like, I'm the first assistant, but I'm in charge of making sure I get good kids to this program. But there was just so much more to it than just getting good kids to the program. And so, and my head coach at the time, she was really transparent in the beginning, like, hey, I know this isn't something that you've done before, but, I've had a lot of good recommendations about you, about how hard you work and how hard you're willing to work. And so that's why I'm here to help you grow in your position and, all that stuff. So it was cool. She gave me free reign and I was able to network, and she really, really promoted networking. She really promoted just getting out there and going to watch basketball. She was fully invested in knowing the game from all aspects. And so she let me grow in that position. But I don't think I really understood the magnitude of what a recruiting coordinator does for a program until I actually got into that role. So
what were some of the things that you didn't expect that may have been challenging?
Some of the things I did not expect, it's not that I didn't expect it. It's just I wasn't prepared for it, I guess you could say. I had to coordinate all of the on-campus visits. I had to talk to parents. I had to get transcripts. I had to be able to decipher transcripts. I was the first point of contact for everything. I had to make the recruiting schedules ahead of time for a season, for a summer ahead of time. And then on top of that, the year-long schedule, make sure we're going to every senior night. Make sure we have a priority list. We have our second-tier kids. We have our third-tier kids. We got to make sure we have enough money for this. I was in charge of the scholarships. So there was a lot of different things that I had my hand in that I just was learning as I was going. So, yeah.
What did you enjoy most about recruiting, and what did you like the least?
The one thing I liked the most about recruiting was the relationship building. I think that is what I have a knack for just talking to people and just talking to people, not just talking to people, but like actually investing into the conversation and getting to know the person. So I love to talk, obviously, but so when it came to recruiting kids and getting to know them, if the kids wanted to keep it at surface level, then, you know, it was really, really hard to get to know them. But if you truly invest in the kid and get to know them, even I was recruiting kids that didn't even look at D2s, but they considered us because I gained a relationship with them, you know, and they took it to heart when they had to tell me, Coach, I'm going to this D1. I'm sorry. I really, you know, really liked you. I would have went to San Bernardino if I didn't go D1. You know, that's every phone call when they went D1. I would have went to San Bernardino because of you and the relationship that I got to build with you, you know, so that goes a long way, because if that kid bounces back, they're going to remember me, you know, they're going to remember Cal State San Bernardino and Coach Bree, and the relationship happens all the time. And so it was a relationship piece for me in recruiting. When the one thing I did not like giving tours. Campus tours was probably my least favorite thing, because in San Bernardino, it's like over 100 degrees and you're walking outside in a big campus and having to tour. And so, I mean, it was cool when you got to tour them in the arena and like the basketball stuff and do like the little photo shoot where they put on the jerseys. But the tours outside, when you had to walk around the entire campus and tell them which building is which and all that stuff, I think that was probably my least favorite, because I wanted to take a golf cart like the men's basketball team, but we walked everywhere.
So one of my favorite things to talk to coaches who are actually in recruiting is to kind of get a sense of, you know, what you look for when you walk in the gym. And the reason why it's so important is because I just don't think kids really believe that what you guys look for is what you're looking for. And, you know, when we're coaching club kids, especially, it depends on the level, right? We've had All-Americans. So the conversation that we're having with, you know, with, for example, you know, the only All-American in club that I've been around was Destiny. The conversations that Marlon's having with Destiny is different, because, you know, she's a scorer and she's going to be, whoever recruits her, she's going to be the face of their program. Mm-hmm. But most often the level that I would coach for club would be the second level. So I would always tell my kids the coaches who are looking for you aren't going to be looking for you to be the leading scorer. They're looking to see if you could be a defensive stopper. Can you be a shot maker on the catch? Can you be a difference maker on the defensive end? And they just don't believe that. They think that all you guys are looking for is people who can put the ball in the basket. And I also tell them that if they're recruiting you, for example, I know when you were coming to Palomar games, you were recruiting Nikki. So if you're in the gym looking at Nikki, who ended up going there, you already know she could shoot. That's not what you're looking for. That's something you already know. So tell me kind of what things that if you could, when you walk in the gym, what are you looking for a kid outside of the obvious, you know, putting the ball in the basket?
Yeah, and Nikki's a great example, because the game that I think I came to, the last game for Palomar when they played, or not the last game that I came to watch was against— the
last game they played, Glendale.
Yeah, the last game they played against Glendale, right. That game, Nikki was off. She was completely off. She was missing everything. But what I looked for in her was, how is she responding, you know, to her being off? Is she still being a good teammate? Is she still cheering for her teammates? Is she still doing the little things, you know, on defense, the things that she can control? How is she holding her composure? You know, so those were the things, and that made a difference for me, you know, sealing the deal with her, because I knew she could play. You know, for the most part, as recruiting coordinators, we're not going to just watch anybody. You know, we're going to watch kids that we've heard of. We talk, coaches talk, you know, if a college coach, you know, a D1 coach can't take a kid, they want them to go somewhere, they're going to call the lower level coaches and be like, hey, I got a kid. She's not fit for our program, but we think she's fit for your program. It's all about fit. And I wish I understood that when I was in high school, because I was only aiming for D1 and that wasn't it. I wish I would have known that I was a better fit for Division II or even NAIA D1, you know. So when I go into the gyms as a recruiting coordinator at the Division II level, yeah, I'm looking for kids who can ball, but I'm also looking for kids who are being good teammates. You know, Coach Renaud was very big on character, you know, because we as coaches, we could coach. We're going to teach you what we need to teach you because it's college. But we can't teach heart. We can't teach character. You know, that's too much babysitting. And we can't teach a kid to want it, you know, in the sense of, are you diving on the floor to get the loose balls? Are you making the extra, you know, where's your IQ at? You know, what are you, you know, those kinds of things. So it's the intangibles that we're looking at that don't get on the score sheet or the stat sheet and stuff like that. So.
And on the flip side, what are some things that are some quick turnoffs for you?
Quick turnoff, bad attitude. Kids that have bad attitudes will quickly get off our radar. You could throw 30 points down every game, 10 boards, you know, dime after dime after dime. But if you've got a bad attitude and act like you're too good to talk to us, it's all right. We'll go get a kid that wants to be at this school. You know, so bad attitudes, kids that are, you know, that don't know how to play team basketball. If you can't play team basketball, it's a lot of one-on-one nowadays because everybody's trying to make a highlight tape. But if you can play team basketball, kids that know their role and are bought into the system, then we know that they're going to buy into our system when they come to our program. They're going to know how to play their role. And then, you know, just all around good kids, good character kids is a big thing for when I was at San Bernardino. So
what are we doing next? So we're not at San Bernardino. Kind of what's next up for Bri Martinez?
So I currently took a full-time position at Point Loma Nazarene, not as a coach. I'm actually utilizing my degrees, which I'm proud of. I'm an academic counselor for the School of Education at Point Loma Nazarene, but I'm also going to be assisting Paris Johnson at the Bishop's School, which I'm so pumped about because I'm an alum and she's a first-time head coach and I adore Coach P, and I'm just so excited to learn from her because she's got a wealthy resume of experience, and you know, her and I vibe really well. So I'm just excited, you know, and I already had a chance to coach Angie and Renee and Natalia on EBO before I went to San Bernardino. So I'm excited to coach them in their senior season. So even better.
What else you got going on outside of basketball?
I mean, not much. I work full time with Point Loma. I have a boyfriend that I take care of all the time. I feel like a housewife already. You know, it's different for me, but it's fun. I love it. I mean, I love the life I live now. You know, I'm really happy with life. I feel super blessed with what I've got going on, and I've got stability. I'm where I'm supposed to be, and I've got good people in my life. So hey, I'm very, very happy.
So last thing, you know, what advice do you have for kids right now? Like there's a lot of kids that, you know, Marlon and I talk about it a lot. I just feel like there's so many, I'll be honest, I think there's a lot of bad actors out there. And I think there's a lot of kids that are getting, I think there's a lot of people who are trying to eat off of these kids, you know, financially. And I understand, you know, everybody has to do what they have to do to make money. And, you know, to each his own. But I do also feel like at the same time that for every bit of bad advice out there, you know, there's always, you know, an alternative. So what kind of advice do you have for, let's say, like I asked Marlon, we talked last year, you know, or the other day, we're talking about, you know, high school coaches about to take over, you know, a new coach about to take over their first program or whatever. So what kind of advice would you, thinking back to a young Bri going into her, let's say her sophomore year at Bishop's, what kind of advice do you have to that kid, you know, feeling her way out in his basketball game with aspirations to play in the college level? What kind of advice would you give that player?
I think the first thing, I mean, there's so much advice I would give to my young self, but I think the first thing I would tell myself is don't worry about what everybody else is doing. Just worry about yourself, stay in your lane, don't compare yourself to nobody else. You know, like I told you before, I lived with Inga, so I'm watching her letters come in left and right from Louisville. Their offers, like Jeff Walls sat on my couch, you know, asking Inga, you know, if if she would come to Louisville, and USC, was offering. I mean, all these schools, Baylor, UConn, all these different schools were offering Inga, and then I'm sitting here waiting. So don't compare yourself to what everybody else is doing. Everybody's got their own journey. Trust the process. Surround yourself with wealthy people, wealthy with knowledge, not, monetary things, but wealthy with knowledge that have the best of intentions for you. I was super blessed to have Coach Marlon and great parents that invested in me. But the first thing I would say is just don't worry about what everybody else is doing. Stay in your lane, keep your head down, worry about what you're doing. And because at the end of the day, nobody else is working for your scholarship. You're working for your scholarship. You're working for your degree. Nobody else has to reap the consequences except you. So don't worry about what nobody else is doing, because everybody else is going to get there. So you might as well go get yours. And I wish I didn't worry about that when I was younger.
Well, I think you were an outstanding role model. Your journey really illustrates that you don't have to succumb to adversity. There's a lot of people who have given up on this game under a lot less circumstances, dealing with a whole lot less adversity that you've come across on your journey. And that's why I really wanted to talk to you, is because I just know that there's kids that the first roadblock to success, to whether it be not maybe getting cut from varsity or not playing a lot or have a tough coach or an injury, and you kind of been you're a young lady, but you've been through a lot in a very short time. And I appreciate you sharing your story, because I really, really, really believe it can be an inspiration for a lot of the young players, not just in our county, but everywhere. So I'm proud of you. I feel like I've been around since right around that second ACL tear. You've always, your spirit's been always great. I think you're the kind of, you're perfect. You and Paris are going to be the perfect dynamic for those kids, especially those kids in their senior year. Just because you're what they need. And I wish you guys the best of luck. I will be there, watching and supporting best I can. Definitely not going to play you guys, but we'll definitely be watching and keeping up with you. And I appreciate you taking time. And again, I really hope some people can sit back and enjoy this and learn and take some inspiration for kind of what you've been through, because it's an outstanding story that's still has a lot of chapters to be written. So I thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I'm blown away that you even asked me to be on here. So thank you. I appreciate it. I'm willing to share my story anytime. So thank you for having me here.
Thank you so much. And we'll share this and get the word out. And like I said, I wish you the best of luck. I will see you in the gym real soon. And again, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Haas.
All right, Bree, talk to you later.